Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name's Luke. It is January, what is today? The 14th. I hope you made it through Friday the 13th okay. But it is the 14th, and it's a 3-day weekend here for us. So I'm planning on enjoying myself and being a Synth Seeker all weekend. What is today? Today I got a package in the mail, actually. I got a couple pedals showing up. Now I've been looking for some pedals, guitar pedals, to connect specifically to the Matriarch. So they need to be stereo. I was looking for some stereo pedals to do a little processing with. Now I could just do it all in the box, but just like hardware, there's something about turning physical knobs that just does it for me. So anyway, I thought I'd share with you and make a little noise, play with a little pedal. Maybe not jam so much as, another question people had asked is like, what's the chain you use to get stuff? How do you get stuff into Ableton, right? I thought I might cover that very briefly, but the only thing I'm going to focus on today is the Matriarch. All right. And so the way I get hardware into Ableton, just real quick, is if we look at, we use an external instrument device here. That's pretty much key for getting stuff in. And the way it works is I use a push as a control surface or a piano that's sitting over there, a keyboard controller. And basically that MIDI comes into Ableton, all right? And that comes into Ableton onto whatever track is currently selected. In this case, I've got the Matriarch track selected here, as you can see. And the important thing here is this external instrument plugin. Now, there are tutorials for this online. There's an excellent one at Ableton. Other people have explained this, but people were asking me to do this, so I'm just going to walk us through it real quick. I did a super short 60-second video that covered it, but that was more of a joke for a friend. Now, that MIDI comes in from here, right? Comes out of the push or that keyboard, and it comes into Ableton, and it comes into whatever channel is currently selected. All right, and it comes down through this chain from left to right. There's some MIDI processing that you can opt to do or not. These are just devices that you put in. This entire sort of track is just a bunch of devices. Think of it like a bunch of pedals all lined up. And a signal comes down into the track, MIDI signals. It comes through this chain of little pedal-like behavior, right? Right? And these ones aren't doing much to it right now, but the important thing is it gets to this external instrument plugin or device. And what it does then is it sends the MIDI out of the computer. In this case, it sends it out a MIDI interface that's connected via USB. It's sending it out on channel 1. And I've got the Matriarch set up hardware-wise so that it is listening to channel 1 for notes. All right. So it sees these notes. They come out of Ableton and go out to the Matriarch or whatever synthesizer I've got. On every one of these tracks, I can have a different device, external instrument device, pointing to a different MIDI port and a different MIDI channel. All right, so that's how I connect all of these hardware synthesizers. All right, now they see those MIDI notes that the Matriarch says, "Oh, there's a D. I got to play that," and it plays it. It sends its audio out through its audio outputs, right? The jacks on the back of the synth. Now I've got all of those running into what is effectively a mixer. I've got a audio interface with some inputs on it, and there are mixers that do that. There's boxes that you can rack mount, boxes that sit on your desk. I'm not going to go into all the different varieties of those, but basically it's a audio interface, something that is also connected to the computer via USB, and the audio from the synth that gets generated by those MIDI notes that this device sends to it comes back into the computer through that interface, and it comes back on some channel. Right, multi-channel interfaces. They have at least two. They may have channels 1, 2, channels 3, 4. You could be sending a mono signal in or a stereo signal. Again, I'm not going to really dig into this, but that audio comes back in to this external instrument device and shows up on whatever port I've got selected here. In this case, all right, it's coming in on 7/8. You can adjust the gain and things like that. And it basically comes in. Now, the rest of these devices are like guitar pedals. They're processing audio. So the audio comes out of this, goes into, in this case, I've got this multi-band compressor that I'm fiddling around with because one of the pedals that arrived today is real squawky. And so I was compressing some of the mids. And then the Matriarch, I like it to be a little bit brighter on the top end, so I push it through an EQ with a little shelf here. And then I've got, whatever effects devices you want. In this case, I've got an echo here, but it's turned off right now, so we're not hearing it. But if I were to turn it on, analog. Love how it stays in tune. Anyway, and so that's basically how I get audio, MIDI from Ableton to the synths and then audio back in. That's the sort of loop. From the push into Ableton's track, down the track, out the external instrument device to a particular port and channel on MIDI that's connected to a synth. The synth gets that. It generates audio. That audio comes back to an audio interface, which comes back into this external instrument device on a particular set of channels. And then we process it as we need to. Right. Now, in the case of the pedals that arrived today, the Matriarch's plugged into a few new pedals that are going to process that sound before it comes back to the computer, which is fine. What arrived today was a Boss SL2 slicer, which I will turn on now, and you can take a listen. You hear that rhythmic? All right. So that is processing it. I think that's a ring mod actually in there. Now, I'm not going to go through all the patterns and things like that. It's got a bunch of different patterns and effects that it will apply. I recommend you go check out Jorb's video on the slicer. There's a link in the description. And I've only had it about an hour, and I wanted to get this video out tonight just to continue the January video thing. But if I apply an effect like an echo inside Ableton while that sort of rhythmic ring mod is running, my left hand's playing a little bass on the side. Right. So I'm going to explore the slicer over the next few weeks. It's basically a rhythmic gate. If you've ever used a trance gate or a sharp vibrato that uses a square wave, it's very similar, except that this has some intelligence in it that's putting in interesting patterns and then also applying effects to them, not just straight LFO based gating. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. Now that's the slicer. The other thing that came in, let's turn off that echo. I'm going to apply a little reverb here. The other thing that came in was one of my favorite effects. This is a Univibe, and I've got it processing the reverb tails. I'm getting a little clipping. Hang on a sec. There we go. I don't know if you could feel that swirling. I'm going to turn it off. So without, and then with, it's real subtle. I've got it real slow. Just sort of, it does this sort of churning, swirling. It's not a phaser. A phaser has a different sort of effect with like feedback. It sounds a little bit like a jet engine or something like that. I'm going to turn it up as we do this. I think you could probably start to hear it now. Starting to sound a bit more like a phaser as I turn the intensity up. But I like it more on the gentle side, and I like it real slow. Sorry without the tails. Again, without, everything's sort of dead center. So I'm running a Matriarch here, so let's turn on its little delay. All right, give it a little more feedback. All right, so Bucket Brigade I find also sounds really good with a univibe on it. Turn up the intensity, bring the speed up a bit. Anyway, so that's what's coming today. And let me see. We'll do a little micro jam here. I'm just going to lay some Matriarch over top of the over her Moog bass. Let's see. There we go. We'll clean up this note a little bit. And we'll lay some of this down. Let's go with 16. Some reverb. There we go. Got that laid down. Tame that reverb just a tiny bit. Anyway, maybe not the most entertaining video for January, but I just wanted to play with this gear. And really, I needed to get a video out, but I haven't had time to incorporate this very well. So there's a tiny little 2-part jam, me screwing around with some new pedals. And I will probably just play with them off on the side for the rest of the month. And it's going to take a little RTFMing to get the hang of everything. But anyway, it's been a long week, ups and downs. Generally ended on a good note. Hey, New Gear Day is always a good note, right? And really, that's about it. So thanks for hanging out with me. And I will talk to you again tomorrow. And as always, this has been Synth Seeker. Have a great weekend.